Versailles. Not the quiet museum people walk through now, but the living palace, the loud one, the endlessly glittering, whispering, exhausting palace at the center of France, just a few years before the French Revolution changes everything forever. You wake beneath layers of embroidered silk and heavy linen sheets, so soft they barely feel real against your skin. Your bed is enormous, raised high above the floor like a stage, surrounded by pale curtains embroidered with tiny golden flowers that glow softly in the candlelight. The room is still dim. Morning has not fully arrived yet, but somewhere beyond the doors of your bedchamber, you can already hear movement. Soft footsteps crossing polished floors, the faint clink of porcelain, servants whispering in distant hallways, the crackling of fireplaces being relit throughout the palace. Versailles never truly sleeps. Even in darkness, it breathes around you, and before you even open your eyes fully, you smell beeswax candles, powdered perfume, fresh linen, polished wood, faint smoke from hundreds of fireplaces hidden inside the walls of the palace. You are 17 years old, a princess of France, and although your life looks impossibly beautiful from the outside, you are beginning to realize something strange. Almost nobody here is ever truly alone. Before we continue tonight, I'm genuinely curious. Where are you listening from? I always love reading the comments and seeing where everyone is in the world while we slowly drift through these stories together. Maybe you're listening from a quiet bedroom or somewhere late at night while the city outside slowly falls asleep, or perhaps from beneath blankets while the world feels still and distant for a little while. Wherever you are tonight, I'm glad you're here. And there's no complicated story to follow, no stressful plot, no loud drama. Tonight we're simply going to wander slowly through another lifetime, through candlelit hallways, silk dresses, lonely royal dinners, garden walks at sunset, quiet romances, and the strange feeling of living inside one of the most beautiful palaces in human history, while the world outside quietly begins changing forever. So, get comfortable, and imagine this. The curtains around your bed slowly open, not by themselves, by servants, several of them, because royal women in Versailles rarely dressed alone, or woke alone, or ate alone, or honestly, did anything alone. The ladies in waiting enter quietly carrying candles and fresh water, while another servant kneels near the fireplace adding wood to the flames. The room grows warmer slowly. Golden light flickers softly across painted walls covered in pale blue silk and delicate floral embroidery. One servant opens the tall window slightly. Cool morning air slips into the room carrying the scent of wet gardens and trimmed hedges from somewhere far below. Outside, Versailles is beginning to wake. From my bedroom window, the palace seems endless. Long golden rooftops glowing beneath the early morning sky. Perfect gardens stretching outward in impossible symmetry. Fountains standing silent before the day begins. Statues marching quietly over empty pathways. Even the trees are controlled here. Trimmed, measured, ordered. Everything in Versailles is designed People notice everything: who speaks to whom, who dances together, who receives invitations, who wears certain colors, who seems favored, who seems forgotten. The palace is beautiful, but it is also deeply lonely sometimes, especially for young women. You are surrounded by people constantly, and yet genuine connection feels strangely rare. Most conversations sound rehearsed. Most compliments feel strategic. Most friendships carry hidden expectations beneath them. And slowly, you begin craving ordinary moments instead. Real moments. Someone laughing unexpectedly. Someone speaking honestly. Someone forgetting etiquette for just a second. Later that afternoon, you escape to the gardens. At least, as much as a princess can escape. A guard still follows several steps behind. Your ladies remain nearby, but compared to the palace halls, the gardens feel almost peaceful. The pathways stretch endlessly beneath pale afternoon sunlight. Marble statues glow softly beside fountains. Orange trees sit inside decorative pots lining the walkways. Birdsong drifts through trimmed hedges. Somewhere in the distance, musicians rehearse near an open courtyard. You walk slowly beside the reflecting pools, and that's when you notice him. Again, you've seen him before, at dinners, at performances, across crowded ballroom floors glowing with chandeliers. His name is Julian, the younger son of a duke, not important enough to inherit great power, which somehow makes him more relaxed than most men at court, less rehearsed. The first thing you noticed about him weeks ago was that he seemed genuinely amused by things. Not politely amused, actually amused, as though he had not yet fully learned how artificial Versailles could become. Today he's standing near the gardens feeding pieces of bread to swans beside the water. When he notices you approaching, he bows properly. But there's something softer in his expression afterward. Something warm. You escaped too, he says quietly. You smile despite yourself. Only briefly. He glances toward the palace. That place becomes louder every day. You look back at Versailles rising behind the gardens. Beautiful, massive, almost unreal beneath the sunlight. And quietly, you admit something dangerous. Sometimes I think it feels more like a performance than a home. Julian looks genuinely surprised. Not because the thought is unusual, but because royal women are not expected to say such things aloud. For a moment, neither of you speaks. The fountains continue softly behind you. Swans drift across still water. Warm wind moves through the gardens. And suddenly, for the first time in weeks, you feel calm. As summer passes, your life slowly begins circling around these small moments. Passing Julian in hallways, sharing conversations during garden walks, exchanging glances during impossibly long formal dinners. Nothing dramatic happens, because romance among aristocrats rarely unfolds dramatically at first. It unfolds quietly, through proximity, observation, long conversations hidden beneath etiquette. And slowly, you begin looking for him everywhere, at musical performances, at evening gatherings, near the gardens at sunset. The strangest part is how ordinary he makes you feel. Not like a princess, not like a political symbol, just like a girl. And honestly, that becomes intoxicating, because when people spend their entire lives performing versions of themselves, being truly seen feels almost shocking. One evening, Versailles glows entirely with candlelight. Hundreds of flames flicker against mirrors and gold leaf throughout the ballroom while musicians perform softly near the orchestra balcony. The entire palace feels dreamlike Julian says nothing. Then finally, no. The answer settles softly between you, and somehow, that single honest moment feels more intimate than anything else so far. After that evening, everything between you and Julian changes slightly. Not openly, not enough for the rest of the court to notice immediately, but quietly, subtly, the kind of change that exists mostly in pauses, in glances, in the way two people begin looking for each other instinctively inside crowded rooms. And Versailles is always crowded. That is one of the strangest parts of palace life. No matter how enormous the rooms are, how high the painted ceilings stretch, how endless the hallways seem, privacy barely exists. Servants move constantly through corridors carrying candles, gowns, letters, trays of fruit, silver dishes, fresh flowers. Courtiers drift through salons exchanging gossip in low, elegant voices. Musicians rehearse behind distant doors. Laughter echoes from drawing rooms late into the evening. Shoes tap softly across polished floors at all hours of the night. The palace never truly becomes silent, and perhaps that's why you begin loving nighttime so much, because very late, when most candles have burned low, when the music finally fades, when even the endless conversations begin disappearing into sleep, Versailles almost feels human again. You start staying awake longer than you should. After your ladies leave for the night, after your jewelry has been removed, after your heavy gown has been exchanged for softer linen sleeping clothes. You sometimes sit alone beside the window watching moonlight spill across the gardens. The palace outside becomes silver and blue in darkness. Fountains stand perfectly still beneath the stars. Statues cast long shadows across empty pathways. Rows of glowing windows flicker softly throughout the distant wings of Versailles. Somewhere out there, hundreds of other people are awake too. Servants, guards, nobles unable to sleep. And perhaps that's comforting somehow, the thought that loneliness itself is shared. You rest your chin against the window frame, listening to the faint sounds of nighttime drifting through the palace. And think about Julian, the way he listens carefully when you speak, the way he pauses before answering difficult questions, the way he seems almost uncomfortable with how artificial court life can feel sometimes. You wonder if he's awake too, and immediately feel embarrassed for wondering. And honestly, autumn arrives gradually. The gardens change first. The bright green surrounding Versailles slowly soften into faded gold and purple beneath colder skies. Morning air grows sharper. Fireplaces burn constantly now throughout the palace, filling the halls with warmth and the faint scent of smoke and melting wax. You've always loved this season. Versailles somehow becomes softer in autumn, less dazzling, less performative. Candles glow earlier in the evenings. Sometimes I think ordinary people may understand freedom better than we do. Julian looks at you carefully. You would trade this place away? You turn back toward the palace rising enormous in the distance. Even now, Versailles is breathtaking. Golden windows glowing faintly beneath the cloudy sky. Massive gardens stretching endlessly around it. The most luxurious palace in Europe. And still, you answer quietly, I think beautiful things can still feel lonely. The wind moves softly around both of you. Leaves scatter across the stone path. Then Julian smiles sadly. Yes, he says, they can. That night, there is another ball. Versailles seems to hold endless balls, endless performances, endless elegance, endless expectations. Your ladies spend nearly 2 hours preparing you. Powder brushed carefully onto your skin, pearls fastened delicately at your throat, your hair arranged high with ribbons and jeweled pins until your neck aches slightly beneath the weight. Tonight, your gown is pale gold silk, beautiful, heavy, almost impossible to move naturally inside. By the time you finally enter the ballroom, hundreds of candles already flicker against mirrored walls. Music swells softly through the room while couples drift gracefully across polished floors. Everything looks magical, and somehow that makes the loneliness worse. Because when beauty surrounds you constantly, people stop asking whether you're happy inside it. You smile politely through conversations, bow correctly, dance when expected, but emotionally, you feel far away tonight, as though you're watching yourself perform princesshood from a distance. Then finally, through the crowd, you see Julian approaching, and instantly, you relax, not dramatically, not visibly enough for most people to notice, but internally, like your body recognizes safety before your mind fully does. He bows slightly before offering his hand. Will you dance with me? You place your hand in his, and for a moment, the ballroom noise softens around you. The dance is slow, elegant, measured carefully according to court etiquette. You cannot stand too close, cannot speak too freely, cannot forget where you are. And yet, somehow, this feels more intimate than being alone. Julian's hand rests lightly against yours, warm, steady. Candlelight flickers softly across his face while music echoes through the ballroom around you. For a while, neither of you says much. Then quietly, almost beneath the music itself, he asks, if you could leave Versailles for one day, where would you go? The question catches you off guard. You think about it seriously. Not grand places, not foreign countries. Oddly, the first thing that comes to mind is something simple. A small house somewhere quiet, you admit. Julian smiles slightly. With no court, with no one watching. The honesty of your own answer surprises you, because that is the truth beneath everything. You're proud of being watched, watched while dressing, watched while eating, watched while speaking, watched while existing, and perhaps that is one of the hidden tragedies of my life. Luxury without privacy eventually becomes its own kind of cage. Julian studies your expression carefully, and softly he says, I think you would have been happy somewhere ordinary, And somewhere without servants, without court etiquette, without endless performance, the welfare bills are simple, and meetings are private, where love is allowed to feel ordinary instead of strategic. And strangely, the fantasy feels more luxurious than Versailles itself. Outside the window, the palace sleeps beneath the cold autumn sky, beautiful, silent, unaware of how close history is beginning to move toward it. And somewhere inside that enormous glowing palace, you slowly begin falling in love. Winter settles over Versailles slowly. The gardens lose their color first. Fountains fall silent beneath pale morning skies, while forest gathers delicately across statues and hedges like powdered sugar. The palace itself becomes warmer, brighter, more crowded indoors. Fireplaces burn day and night now. Candles glow constantly against mirrored walls. Heavy velvet curtains trap you inside endless rooms. And yet, despite all the warmth, you have never felt the palace so emotionally cold, because something is changing, not visibly at first. Not a royal performance, not an extravagant event, just warmth, quiet, someone you care about nearby. Sometimes the softest moments become the ones people remember forever. Eventually, Julian closes his book. You seem happier here. In the library, with nobody watching. The observation makes you laugh quietly. Then after a moment you ask, "Do you ever think about what happens next?" Julian studies the fire for a long time before answering, "Yes." And his expression softens slightly. "I think France is changing faster than Versailles realizes." The answer unsettles you immediately, not because it sounds dramatic, but because deep down, you already know it's true. You've felt it for months now. That strange tension beneath everything beautiful, like hearing distant cracks beneath ice. You glance toward the windows where snow continues drifting silently outside. Do you think things will become dangerous? Julian hesitates, and that hesitation alone becomes your answer. That night, you cannot sleep again. The palace feels unusually quiet beneath the snowfall. Moonlight reflects softly across the white gardens outside while fireplaces burn low throughout the corridors. You lie awake beneath heavy blankets, staring upward at the embroidered canopy above your bed. And suddenly, for the first time in your life, Versailles no longer feels permanent. All your childhood, the palace seemed eternal, unshakable, infinite, the center of the world itself. But now, you begin understanding something terrifying. Even the grandest places in history are still fragile. Even kingdoms disappear eventually. Even beautiful lives change. The realization should frighten you completely. And yet, strangely, another feeling rises beside it too. Clarity. Because if nothing lasts forever, perhaps small moments matter even more. A conversation beside snow-covered windows. A quiet dance beneath candlelight. Someone understanding you honestly for a few brief months in a world built almost entirely on performance. Outside, winter continues covering Versailles softly in white. And somewhere beyond the palace gates, France inches closer toward revolution. Even though tonight, inside this candlelit room, everything still feels calm enough to dream inside.